Hi, we are Victims of Circumstance, and you're listening to Rock at Night.
Yeah, are you ready? Hey, tonight I'm gonna take you on a little trip. We're going down south by the mighty Mississippi. I'm gonna take you to a place where lights never dim. Bring your mother, your brother, and your best friend. I'm gonna show you where they dance out in the street. They'll tell you all about your body heat. Not gonna talk about it, just gonna do it. Get on down if you feel up good. Get on down.
Hi, this is Anita Stewart with Rock at Night, and I'm talking to Glenn Stewart. As far as we know, we're not related. The drummer of Victims of Circumstance, and Lindsey Pittard, the bassist for Victims of Circumstance. The band is a ska punk band that hails from Clearwater, Florida, and they've been together 15 years. Their upcoming release is their 5th studio recording, appropriately called 5. I just reviewed the album last week. You'll find that here at Rock at Night. And also 2020 is supposed to be a really hopeful and visionary year for the band, with perhaps an upcoming tour in Europe to celebrate 15 years together. So that's quite a milestone. So I'll go ahead and start with my first question. Okay, who in the band went to Clearwater High School?
What is this, trivia? I don't know.
Yeah, it's trivia.
Clearwater High School. I would guess Jay?
I would have to say Jay, because I know it wasn't you or I know it wasn't Devin. I don't think it was Mike.
It's either Jay or Mike. I'm gonna say Jay.
Say Jay.
Yeah.
Final answer.
Okay. All right. Well, Michael Smythe he's the vocalist and guitar of the band, not with us during this interview. And then Jason Athene is the saxophone player, and Devin Johnson is the trumpeter. So those are the 3 that complete the lineup of the band. So that was a little trivia question, and I did graduate from there, but I'm not going to tell you what year. So now, do you all have day jobs now, or is the music full-time for the members of the band right now?
We've all pretty much had day jobs the entire time. I mean, earlier on in the band, we spent a little more time, on the road and playing out and things like that. But at
some point, you got to make some money.
Yeah, as the years go on, we've all turned into better full-time jobs. But the nice thing about having full-time jobs as well is that it allows us to put more money towards the things we want to do, which is stuff with the band, and allows us to try to get on better shows and go on tours and things like that. So it's got its pluses and minuses, but we all have to work, unfortunately.
It's really like any other business, where it's the more you put into it, the more you get back from it. And upkeeping instruments and going on tour and everything, that's very costly. So
absolutely.
Now, how did you all get together? Was this in school or after?
It was actually after. Myself and Mike worked at a marketing company, and I had mentioned to Mike about I used to play the drums. I knew he played guitar. I said, hey, if I get another set of drums, you want to start jamming? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then we grabbed on our first album, we had Brandon Bola was our bass player. He had never played bass before in his life. He was a clarinet player. So we conned him into learning the bass, and spent about a year putting things together, a little over that, and recorded our first album with him. But then, what was it, 2000? I think around 2008, Jay, we replaced our bass player, and then Jay came along, and then Lindsey came along in 2009, and then we also added Devin in
to complete the lineup
around 2010 or so. So we've had almost the same lineup now since for 9-10 years, which has been really nice. And it all happened after school. It just was kind of a fluke thing of like, hey, let's get together and jam, and then all of a sudden we jammed and we're like, oh wow, we're not too bad.
I actually found the band I joined the band by a very strange circumstance. I was working in a bar at the time, and Jay's wife used to frequent that bar, and she knew I played bass. So one day she comes in, she's like, hey, they actually need a new bass player. You want to come out, meet the guys, see what's going on, and one thing after another, and here I am today, 10 years later.
Yeah, we had tried out a bunch of bass players looking for people, and we'd have them come in, and we'd have them play a couple of our songs. Lindsey came in and played for Mike and I think he got maybe 15 seconds into a song, and Mike and I looked at each other, we're like, okay, Lindsey's in the band. it didn't take long. Lindsey's we always refer to Lindsey as the one in the band that has talent. So.
So my. Well, that's how it happened with Jaco Pastorius too. Apparently his wife was talking to somebody on the beach. I can't remember the whole story, but she said, my husband is the best bass player in the world. And I looked at her, okay, right, lady, but when he heard him, he changed his mind, but that's the legend around. Right. Yeah, that was like the legend around that whole discovery part of Jaco Pastorius. So now this is the other thing, is how much the music industry has changed. It's kind of like, it's a DIY thing now for so many bands. How has it changed drastically from how you view it since you've been together in the last 15 years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, our first album was called Do It Yourself because we built our own recording studio. We actually recorded our first album at our own studio. I mean, we hired engineers and things like that because we didn't know what we were doing back then. But we had a few connections in the industry a little bit, and when we first started, 2005, it was still getting your music from the internet was kind of like a newer thing. It was still,
right.
that was really still coming on. So it was kind of a transition period at that time. It really in the last 15 years has completely changed. I have a good friend that's in a very popular band. Well, I'm not going to say who it is. He, from the beginning, I've always been in business. I've owned some of my own businesses, and my whole thing in business, when you have a problem with things, you throw more money at it. You try to do this, and
right.
Him and I always used to get into arguments because back then I was like, okay, well, we want to try to get on this tour, or we want to try to do this. Can we offer some money to help with promotion or advertising to try? And he would just, frown on me like, oh my, that's not the way it's done in music. You don't do that. People frown on that. You can't do that. Blah, blah, and made me, feel about 2 inches tall just for suggesting it. But now here it is 15 years later, and unfortunately, that's all anybody looks for. It's not about
like a corporate model.
Yeah,
the corporate model.
Yeah, you're not helping out other bands anymore. They're not doing any of that. It's all about their own self-survival and like, what can you do for me? And so
right.
To me, that's what's completely changed in the last 15 years. Is it's gone from an industry about bands helping bands to a corporate model of, what can you do for us? Why should we take you anywhere? How many followers do you have? How much money are you going to bring? How many people are you bringing to the show? It's just that's where it's completely changed. So that's
exactly. Yeah. Now you created a band. You could have selected any kind of genre. But why did you go with ska or punk? Was it music you liked, or did you see maybe that genre needed to be heard more, or do you have more devoted fans playing those genres? Because I see you all as
popularity.
Yeah.
About popularity. Mike and I were both punk rock fans, and I was a ska fan as well. And I kind of just conned Mike into learning to play ska. And I was like, well, let's do this. So we were playing punk songs at the beginning, and I was like, hey, well, why don't we try this? Hey, do you know what ska is? Let's try. He really knew nothing about ska at the time.
Just play upstrokes instead of downstrokes.
And so we that's kind of how it just started. And I mean, fortunately, Lindsey had always, when Lindsey came along, he was big into punk rock, big into ska, so that was an added bonus right there. But yeah, it was just kind of, I guess, me twisting Mike's arm, and because you know what I mean, let's face it, anytime you get somebody to listen to ska, they're going to like it. It's just
exactly.
It's hard to turn it down.
It is. When I was in Europe, of course, ska was a huge thing in the 80s, and I still think that it never gained the massive popularity here that it did, like in Great Britain.
No, you're right. We've noticed that too when we've toured over there. Just the people that come out, there's a bigger built-in crowd for ska and for ska punk, and it really shows the people that are coming out to our shows when we're over there.
Yeah, it seemed like you said, it was popular in the 80s, and where it got a little bit of footing here, in the 80s and a little bit in the 90s, late 90s. It didn't seem to really fall off as much over there. So I mean, when we tour Europe, we go to cities. Well, obviously, we go to cities we've never been before, and towns we've never been to before, and we'll have a bigger crowd at shows there than places we've played, 10 times here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I think also music is just more part of their culture over there.
It's appreciated more.
Yes, it's appreciated, and
exactly.
It's not unusual for like, oh, hey, it doesn't matter that it's Sunday night and we got to work tomorrow. We're all going out to the pub or wherever, and we're going to watch. We're going to watch this band and drink tonight. I mean, that's just part of their culture, and it's I mean, that's why we love touring in Europe, and that's why we toured there 3 separate times, because it's just it's nice to feel appreciated, especially here in the States. Like Lindsey said, we're in that the punk ska genre is one of the smallest genres at this point. So
definitely taking a backseat.
Yeah. I remember listening to the English Beat the first time and seeing them open up for Sting in Omaha in the Midwest, actually.
Yeah.
And they were every bit as good, if not better, than the Police. That's who I was seeing, not just Sting, but it was Police. Right. And it was evenly matched, I would say, that show. But English Beat impressed me because of how they could flip instruments, during the show, like the saxophone player would go to the piano, and they were just really quite amazing. And of course, between them and UB40 and so many other bands that really made the hits in the 80s. But then again, I was stationed in Europe in the Air Force, so this was like pretty much all the music we heard was whatever was popular in Great Britain at the time.
Right,
but come back to the States and come back to the world, and there wasn't much of that. It was pop, rock, a little bit of punk. That was even a smaller genre, I think, here. Whereas in England and Great Britain, it was protest music, really.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, that was the idea originally.
Yeah.
One of the places when we've toured in Europe that we've played a couple times is we played at Rebellion Festival in Blackpool, which is the world's largest punk rock festival, and we played there twice. And one of the neat, I mean, it's a 4-day festival and just thousands and thousands and thousands of punk rockers there. And one of the neatest things I think about going to something like that, when you speak of punk rock being rebellious music and always has been over there, is the age range of people you see. You see kids there that are 10, and you see people there that are got to be 70 or 75.
You'll see Grandpa there with his balding mohawk up. It's missing patches, but he's still going.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
oh my gosh,
it's crazy how dedicated they are to the punk lifestyle and things like that. And it's really neat to see of like, hey, these people, they've just been living it their whole lives. It's never gone away. I mean,
exactly.
It's just really neat to see that over there, and it's appreciated a lot more over in Europe than it is here, unfortunately.
Another really good punk band that you might have heard of is Anti-Flag, and they're from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually,
they're one of my favorites.
I kind of model my bass playing more than anybody else, I think, after Chris number 2 of Anti-Flag. Like, I listened to him a lot growing up, and I play very similarly to him, so I'm very familiar.
Yeah, they're really, really good. I haven't seen them local since I moved here in March, but, I'm hoping they do an open show and I get to cover them. Rocket Night has covered them before, though, so if you do a search on Rocket Night, you'll find our interview. I think it was back in 2015. I reviewed 5 last week, and I found the tunes and lyrics to be more pop, ska, and punk together. Because the lyrics really grab you like a punk song. It definitely has hooks. So you guys definitely know how to escape those boundaries by genres. And I really want to know, who had the X? Who were you all singing about?
Everybody has been asking that same question.
That's the thing. If that was a real person, my God, that would be terrible.
I think there's little bits
of truth
to that song, just because we know a few stories and things. But there isn't one person that has been all of that. I mean, thank God.
Well, there probably has, but we don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know that person, but we know a few people that have had little bits and pieces of that person. But I don't think I'd want to meet that person.
Yeah, so she's kind of like a layered personality of many, maybe. So
that was a little bit of fiction, a little narrative.
Yes, let's go with that.
Yeah, but I really liked the way that was done, because it was a fun song. It was lively, but it was about the ex, and she had like really not redeeming qualities at all. So it was, it was funny at the same time. So I thought, oh my God, is this the way guys really think? Oh my God. Now, let me ask you this. What are some of your favorite places to do gigs? And you can expound on this, like favorite places maybe in Tampa. You just told me about a favorite place in Blackpool, England. But where are some of the other places in Europe you might have liked to play, and where the fans were really enthusiastic?
I would say the most unexpected place probably has been Poland. We've played there a few times. We've been very fortunate to play there a few times. But you show up to these small towns, and you don't know what you're getting into. Like, it's very old world. It's kind of run down. But the people there are nicer and more generous than anybody you'll ever meet. And we'll go and we'll play this smaller venue in a smaller town, and all of a sudden the entire town shows up to see us, and we're kept playing for an hour longer than we should. They just can't get enough, and then we're signing things when it's over. It's been a ton of fun in Poland. Yeah. Very, very strange atmosphere, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's definitely a highlight when we go over there. In fact, like Lindsey was saying, the last time we were there, we played at a place we had played before, and it was about 5 minutes before we were supposed to go on stage, and there was like 10 people there, and we're like, what is going on? This should be better than this. And I swear, in the last 5 minutes before we went on the stage, like you said, the whole town showed up. It was just weird. But
wow,
two songs in, and the place is just crammed packed with people, and I mean, it was just that was definitely one of the biggest surprises over there. I mean, but every place over there we really enjoy, because it's different, a different atmosphere. Yeah. I mean, here, in Florida and stuff. I mean, we play a lot around Florida, and we'll travel a little bit here and there if there's a specific gig we're going to play or something, or get invited to play. But the funny thing around here, our area, Clearwater, Tampa, St. Pete, has never been a big ska punk area. I mean, there's some ska bands and punk bands, but they've actually kind of thinned over the last 10 years. It's always been more of a metal and rock area. It was a huge goth area for a long time. Yeah. Tampa was. But places are just shutting down that we have played for years and years and years.
We're hoping it's not us.
Yeah. Every time we play somewhere, it shuts down. It's weird.
Every time.
But it's we kind of joke, because the big thing in this area, I was saying not even just this area, I think all over the place, is all of these breweries that are popping up. And I bet you in the Tampa Bay area, if you encompass Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete, there has got to be 30, 40 breweries
on the low side.
Yeah. And they all are turning. A lot of them are turning into music venues. So we always joke that we're on the the beer tour because we play so many breweries. In fact, we're playing a really huge brewery
this weekend.
The day after Thanksgiving. On Black Friday, we're playing a big show in St. Pete at Three Daughters Brewery, and it's this huge brewery where they have a huge stage and lights and great sound. I mean, we find ourselves playing more and more things like that and events rather than clubs, because clubs and stuff are just
shrinking.
They're shrinking and drying up, and it's.
I think they're doing a lot of that here too, because when I saw Rising Appalachia, which is totally different music than what you all do this past weekend, I saw them at a place called Mr. Small's in Pittsburgh, in Millville, which is right outside of Pittsburgh, and it's a converted Catholic church. So the band came out and they started into this very old, adapted, like spiritual gospel type a cappella song. Beautifully done. And I'm taking shots of them and I'm going, oh my God, I should be in church. I love this music so much. And then I thought, oh my God, I'm in church. And in the back, it was all the booths for the beer. I mean, it was all there. I couldn't even get a glass of water unless I paid for it. All the beer was there.
Missing, so that's
churches need more beer. Probably.
That's a great business plan.
I was just really shocked at that. I thought, how could they do that in a church? But they did. So okay. So that's what's happening with a lot of these older buildings here in Pittsburgh. So they're making them into venues, and they're smaller. And if you notice, there's smaller people going. I mean, there's smaller groups of people going to shows, whatever kind of genre. Yeah, whatever.
Tiny people.
So smaller groups. Yeah.
Numbers,
so it was the capacity. The church had the capacity, or Mr. Smalls had the capacity of only 800 people, and it wasn't sold out. So it was less than that at the show.
Right.
So, I think these stadium things, unfortunately, are for the older. It seems to me like they're for the older acts. And the acts,
what we're used to, the stadiums,
the really bigger ones, and they charge a lot, and that's why probably a lot of people prefer the smaller shows. So, but that's kind of the trend here, and the breweries are like the biggest things going on. So,
speaking of that, and you may know this since your time here. One place that we played several times is a brewery in Dunedin called Caledonia Brewery.
Great place.
It actually used to be the site of where they printed the Dunedin newspaper.
Oh, really? I didn't even... Yeah. Now, I knew there was a Dunedin newspaper, but there was also the Clearwater Sun, and I moved down there when the Clearwater Sun was still being published. Do you know what they used to call that?
What?
They used to call it the mullet wrapper.
Just because they're wrapping fish with it? Is that...
Yes, the mullet wrapper. But I never saw a copy of the Dunedin one. I never saw that. So maybe that was before I arrived or something.
Maybe that's why they closed down.
Yeah, maybe. I think it was, it was up and running back, I think, like even in the 40s and 50s and all the way up. I think they closed down finally in the 80s, early 90s or something, but the building that this brewery in used to be that actual newspaper, so it just everything's turned into a brewery now.
Yeah, and that's the corporate model, the quickest way to make money. So,
maybe.
That could be it. Okay, now I want to ask you guys some questions about the creative process. Who does the songwriting?
Lyric writing or music?
Both. How do you all put it together? Yeah, how do you put it together?
Not that there's necessarily a conventional style, but I feel like we're fairly unorthodox. every time it's a different process. Every song is a different process. Occasionally, somebody will come in with a formed idea
or a complete song.
Yeah, like
here's a complete song.
Here's beginning, middle, end. But it's very rare. More often than not, it's something like I have this line, or I have this melody, or Glenn's favorite is I have this whistle. I can whistle this piece, and let's make a song out of it.
I come in all the time with horn lines, and I'm like, all right, Jay, Devin, listen to this. Okay, play that.
Make it a hit. And we just kind of build from that. We all just work with each other, and we keep going. And whatever it started as is usually completely different from where it winds up. But
it's very rare for it to be the same at the beginning as it is the end.
Yeah.
But it's collaborative. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you recording it as you go and then putting different pieces together?
Very roughly, we'll take a phone out and kind of record it so we don't forget it. But that's the extent of it. We're not.
Yeah, we don't really do it. I mean, until we get ready to record an album, we might do some scratch tracks and stuff. But for the most part, like Lindsey said, we'll just do a little iPhone recording, and it does. It just we keep working it and working it and working it until we're somewhat happy with it. And I mean, as far as the lyrics,
it's all Mike.
It's mainly Mike. Yeah, I mean, probably 90% Mike. We sometimes help out with a few lines or ideas. Like we'll have an idea for a song and go, hey, well, what about this? Well,
we'll chastise him until he changes something.
Right. He does most of the writing. Occasionally, there's been. It seems like for the first few albums, there was always like one song that I would write the lyrics for. This last one I didn't, so maybe that's why this one seems like our best album. Mike does the majority of it. This one, this album, normally we were putting out an album every like 2 to 3 years, and this one took 5. So there's a lot of things that the album 5 has to do with. There's 5 of us. This is our 5th album. It took 5 years. There's a lot of stuff with that 5, and
we're lazy, so it was an easy title.
Yeah, we were lazy.
Yeah, that's your lucky number.
Right.
Yeah. You need to. You need to play the number.
I mean, it was a process. I mean, and it's always, like Lindsey said, it's
always collaborative.
Yeah, kind of the same but different every time, a little bit. And this one, like kind of we've said in some other interviews and different stuff. This when we were especially the first 4 albums, we were trying to be this punk and ska band. It was like especially in my head, it was like I think by the time we got to our 3rd album, Acupuncture, which was Lindsey's first time recording with us, it was like that to me was the sound I had been looking for. Like, oh God, we hit it. This is what I really wanted to do.
It was all me.
Yeah, it was all Lindsey. Finally brought it on, and so we kind of got to that, and like so. But we were always trying to be this punk and ska kind of sound. And when we got to this album, there was just nothing set forward as far as like, all right, it's time. Okay, let's write a ska song that's kind of like this or kind of like that. It was just.
It's more like, let's just write a song.
Right, let's write a song. And if somebody had an ad or just some idea, it was just like, it didn't matter if it was ska or punk or not. It was just like, okay, well, let's take this and work it out. And in the end, it sounds like us, but it's not necessarily like stuff we've done before. I mean, we have a lot of, some swing elements on this album that we haven't done before. We have a little bit of more kind of a couple pop punk kind of elements that we hadn't done before. It was just, we didn't set out to make any specific kind of album like we kind of have done in the past. So I think it was just, a little more organic of just, this is what we came up with. Yeah. And in the end, it does sound like us, which is good. But I think it varies a little bit more. I mean, I don't know. Maybe people listen to it and go, "Hey, it sounds exactly like everything else you did." But we kind of feel like it's our strongest, more mature, most mature sounding thing we put out so far.
I agree.
Now we're running out of time, and I did have one more question, and this definitely has the number 5 in it. Where do you see the band in 5 years?
Celebrating our 20th anniversary.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. It's just math.
That was an easy question.
I mean, I'd hope we'd have at least one more album out by then.
Yeah. Yeah,
right. Well, maybe
some
every 2 years might be better.
Yeah.
But
we'll shoot for that.
Yeah.
now, how can people find you? What is I've got your website up here, which is VOC for Victims of Circumstance, and then the word ska. So it's VOCSKA.com. How can they find you other places?
Well,
and are you on Spotify?
Yes. You can Google that. You can look on Spotify. Just search Victims of Circumstance. We're on Instagram, Facebook, on Twitter. We're on Bands in Town. I mean, everything that you would think to find a band at, or YouTube also. Yeah, YouTube. You just search Victims of Circumstance, and you'll find us.
And all of our stuff's on iTunes.
Yep.
So if you have Apple Music, you can listen to any of our stuff at any time.
Amazon Music, we're there too. Pandora.
Yeah.
We're everywhere. You can't get away from it.
Well, I want to congratulate you on this album. I think it's great. I love it. And, of course, I have I have all the songs, so I've been playing them here around the house. And everybody will be able to buy this album as soon as it drops. And I want to thank you guys for joining us at Rocket Night and for this interview. I'll make sure I link up the interview and the story when I put this out. And I want to wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you. And thank you also for the very kind review.
Yeah.
That was very nice.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yes.
And when you get up to Pittsburgh, let me know.
Yeah, we need to make our way up there and play a venue or something. I was just
maybe
up
that
there.
Church. I would like to play that church with the booze in it.
Mr. Smalls is a very cool place. Look it up. Mr. Smalls is the name of that.
Right.
So,
we definitely
and it has
will.
quite a history. Yep. All right. Well, thank you guys. You have a great night.
All right. Well, thank
you.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to Rock at Night.